Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Eliezer Melamed, Shlita. Tainus Esther. Here we are. Hope everybody's going to have an easy fast as we go straight into Chag Purim Sameach. Just to point out a bit of a scheduling note. So I don't think we will have a shiur, a session on Purim itself. And for those who are in Yerushalayim observing Purim Shulash. And just a note for next week, I'll be at a conference out of town that I'm part of the steering committee, and I will return Wednesday, God willing. I would normally pre-record if possible, but given the Purim holiday, I don't think that is likely to happen. So if you don't hear from me in this format, then you'll understand why. But now we can at least finish this chapter and perhaps be done with the smells, and the next chapter is about who can be the Shliach Tzibur, even more interesting. So let's just finish this up. Isser Amir Dvarim Shebegedushim Ol Erva. Also, Lomar Dvarim Shebegedushim Ol Erva. A person is not allowed to say Dvarim Shebegedusha if one is not clothed properly. Shenemar V'Haya Machanecha Kadosh V'Yirbecha Everest V'Vishav Macharecha. Pasuk, as we mentioned in the last couple of days in Devarim, it says that your camp has to be holy, but it says also you can't see Ervas Davar. Kasher gever roa gever acher, uisha or isha acheres, rak kasher makom erva atzma galoi, also lomar dvarim shebekedusha. A man seeing a man, a woman seeing a woman. If the place of the erva is visible, then you cannot say dvarim shebekedusha. Avalagabe gever shor isha, but a man seeing a woman, Amr Chachamim, the Gemara in Bracha says, tevach beisha erva, that even the smallest amount is considered erva. The kavanasam shekol makam shenashim regilim lechasos, also legalos. Anything that is normally covered on a woman, then even if a slight amount is uncovered, then you v'imhu megula also lomar mulu dvarim shebekedusha, then you cannot say dvarim shebekedusha. So we can get into a whole conversation here about mechitzas, etc., etc. But just understand the basics that one should not daven and cannot daven when you're seeing something you're not normally supposed to see. And we try to educate our daughters to dress modestly already at an appropriate age of chinuch. That this prohibition of saying dvarim shebegedusha if there is a woman who is not dressed properly applies not to little girls but to girls already who are becoming of age. What about hair covering? So Amr Chachamim, the Gemara in Brachos again, says Seyar be'isha erva, that a married woman's hair is considered erva. V'chavanasam l'isha nesua. Again, this refers to a married woman. Shem eina mechase eser rosha ein lomar mula dvarim shebegedusha. That if she does not cover her hair, then we cannot say dvarim shebegedusha. And here he appropriately puts a note. He says, what does that mean to cover one's hair? How does one cover one's hair? He says, look again at his other sefer in Peninei Halacha, where he covers this at great length. Again, this is not the place to discuss what is the appropriate hair covering. Perhaps we can cover that at a later date if people would like. But for our purposes, we're just saying hair covering, which is why customarily women always cover their hair in shul for this reason. Hatzorach lihispal ol levarech brachos olum Torah. So let's say someone has to daven, say brachos, or learn Torah, and there's a woman there, and she's not appropriately dressed and appropriately covered. He should ideally turn to a different direction, so that you shouldn't be able to see her. And if he cannot turn away, he should look in the siddur or close his eyes, cover his eyes. Then he could say what he needs to say in davening. Lagabe kisu harosh, as far as hair covering goes, covering the head, kasvu kama acharonim, shahol tzarenu nashim rabos ena mechasos esvashon. Many acharonim, contemporary poskim, say that, unfortunately, many women in our days, they don't cover their hair. Now, so it doesn't arouse any sort of feelings in anyone anymore. But so we could even say dvarim shebegedusha if a woman's hair is uncovered. This is regarding hair, which has perhaps a more lenient law than other places that should be covered, which are not covered. Because we see that covering hair only applies to married women and not to single women. אבל לגבי מקומות המכוסים שבגוף, שגם רווקות צריכות לחסות, אין להקל על פסבר זו. However, when it comes to covering other parts of the body, which applies even to single women, modestly dressed, one has a question about davening in front of a woman who's not modestly dressed. Ein lomar dvarim shebekdusha b'samach l'isha ha-shara, u'shmiya zimras meradio, l'das kama achronim b'di'evet, ein oseres amirs dvarim shebekdusha. Here another question about a woman singing. A person shouldn't say dvarim shebekdusha if you could hear directly a woman singing, and hearing it from a recording from the radio, according to many, is not the same sort of prohibition. So again, these are all covered at length in other volumes of Peninei Halacha. Again, we're just touching upon it here as it applies to Tefillah. But we have to know that we have to create a proper environment for tznius. Applies to men also, that we have certain rules, and when we'll get to it, when we say who can daven for the Amud, etc., that you have to be dressed properly, and proper dress, because when you're going to greet the king and speak to Melech Malchem Melechem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to be dressed appropriately. We have to present ourselves in a proper and modest way. So I want to wish each and every one of you an easy fast, a Chag Purim Sameach. Those here in the diaspora, Purim on Friday. It's not going to happen for another 20 years like this. Let's hope we'll all be together then to celebrate that as well. And for those in Eretz Yisrael, particularly in Yerushalayim, having Purim Meshulash, a very rare and exciting occurrence. So Chag Sameach to everyone. Please, over Purim, continue to daven for Chal Yisrael, Gan Yisrael, for Yerushalayim, L'chol Petzui Yisrael, safe return of our hostages. Nishmat, Sarah, and Daniel Shemin, Rav Dram Vasheli, Shem Damo. Please vote OIC-MIZRACHI, slate number 5, WZC. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you here when we get back.